Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very tall and senior and respected corporate leader from Mumbai, India, Sunita Bangard. Sunita, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sunita is the Group Head of Consumer Insights and Brand Development of the Aditya Birla Group. She was earlier with Colgate-Palmolive, L'Oreal, Unilever, Godrej, and Lintes Advertising. Given the incredible amount of work that she's been doing, understandably, she's been awarded, recognized, and felicitated several times. And interestingly, her philosophy is to ask why not instead of why to come up with newer ideas to deliver results. So, Sunita, before we talk about marketing and brand consumer insights, tell me about your own journey and what got you interested in marketing.
So, it's a fable at home that there are only two professions I would do very well. I am very curious by nature, and I like to ask a lot of questions. And therefore, marketing became a very interesting option for me because it's always about trying to know more, trying to go beyond the obvious, trying to understand what lies underneath. If for any reason I wouldn't have taken marketing, the other thing that I would have done would be legal and become a lawyer because I love to argue as well, because I like to put point across.
Yeah.
But I think it's about the excitement. It's about the unknown. It's about doing different things, doing the same things, but differently. I think that's what really is the reason why marketing is very, very close to me. It's almost my life, if I was to put it that way.
Amazing. And when I was reading about you, I was reminded of my business school journey when the marketing director of Glaxo used to teach us marketing. And he told me, Ashutosh, marketing is not your cup of tea.
Well, everyone, I must say that it's also very abused word because everyone believes they know marketing. I think from my driver to my managing director to the chairman to my colleagues, everyone has a point of view on anything that we do. So to that extent, I guess it sometimes is even more challenging to be able to do the right thing and keep the consumer at the center of everything rather than your own biases coming in.
Very well said. Very well said.
It's incredible. I mean, there's never 2 days that are actually similar. We may be doing the same job, but you'd be very surprised that a certain day a certain new trend is out and then the whole world goes rushing after it, and then the other day it's a fad and it's completely over, and you kind of look at what next.
Absolutely.
So it's a journey that has helped me grow, has helped me learn. To many, many ways, I would say it has also grounded me, because when you go and meet consumers, you really get to know what life is all about. And you go beyond just selling your product, but understanding them, which I think is a very humbling experiences at times. It's a rewarding experience at times. And all in all, a very interesting experience at all times.
Amazing. And Sunita, you've had such a diverse experience in marketing, from consumer goods to beauty, to durables, to advertising, and now you're in a multi-brand conglomerate. What, in your view, has been the evolution of brand marketing in the last few decades, and where do you see it heading?
I must tell you that when I joined out of campus at Colgate, I actually started in sales. And I'm glad I did that, because a lot of my ideas and notions were quite literally thrashed out by my distributor and said, that's in college, this is reality. And one knew that, if you really have to make strategies for a certain end consumer, you need to know what that consumer is all about. So I think the sales really grounded me. But I was so restless to wanting to do more. And at that time, Colgate was at its own pace, because we were, of course, leaders in dental care. And to an extent, it was always about protecting your turf rather than doing new things.
Right.
And so I moved into advertising because I thought that may have a faster pace. And, I'll work across multiple brands, get to know many more things. And I did that for a couple of years. And I must say that got me another experience of managing people, egos of creative, understanding the pressures the client goes through, building a communication pipeline. So that was exciting at that point in time. But somewhere I felt that my calling was, back into managing business and managing brands, and therefore I moved back into to brand marketing, because everyone said if you remain in advertising for too long, then you are almost branded as an advertising person. So I moved to L'Oreal, which I must say is the most incredible journey that I've had in my career. I
Hmm.
was there for 7 years, and I joined them almost 6 months after they launched in India.
Hmm.
So we had one product at that point in time. And today, if you really look at the thousands of SKUs that L'Oreal has, I think I have a fairly reasonable role that I've played to get that journey here. So we were the first handful, 5 or 6 people that had joined L'Oreal in India. It wasn't even called L'Oreal at that time, it was called Indolor.
Hmm.
And I remember after having left, Colgate and Lintas, and I joined this company, nobody had ever heard of it to
Hmm.
begin with.
Hmm.
And I remember after I signed in, I got to know that the turnover, an annual turnover, was just 4 crores. And I was like, did I make the right choice?
Right.
But I must say, whatever I am today as a marketeer, I am because of L'Oreal. And, we launched category after category, brand after brand. And at some stage, I was managing the entire CPG business of L'Oreal in India. So I had 3 brands, which was L'Oreal Paris, Garnier, and Maybelline New York.
Hmm.
And before looking at competition outside, I had to look at competition within, because you had similar products in 2 categories. So therefore, really understanding different consumer types, different mindsets, different barriers, triggers was a great learning experience, because I had to find very distinct identities for my brand, and we had different competitions, different sales structures. Because let me give you an example. They were so clear about their brand strategy that at that time, because obviously L'Oreal Paris was the most premium brand,
Hmm.
uh, we had very clear distinctions where Garnier could be sold, where L'Oreal would be sold. And there was a policy that open grains and food products is not where we will sell L'Oreal, because we wanted to build aspiration for the
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah.
A lot of these small learnings that really went, making me understand what and how sacrosanct a brand identity is, and how do you build that brand
Well,
image.
well said.
Um, I then changed gears and moved to, because in L'Oreal, I was doing more of a deployment or an activation role in India. The strategy would come from Paris, and
Hmm.
we would kind of execute in India at the time. Though we did have 2 India very specific products that we created, which was the fairness cream,
Hmm.
as well as the color naturals hair color, which was a sub 100 product that was launched out of India for the very first time. But then I thought, what does it take to actually decide what the strategy should be? And so I shifted gears and went to Unilever,
Hmm.
where I was in the innovation role. And I was actually looking at not a day job, but more a 3 to 5 year horizon on brands. And how do you really look at the innovation funnel? How do you really prepare consumers to, sort of evolve over a period of time? And I worked on 2 categories, which was skin and hair. And we did the global relaunch of Sunsilk out of India, which was a big exercise, which many countries were involved. And it was a privilege to work on that
Yeah.
launch. And then I looked at myself and I said, I have done activation at one time, I've done innovation at the other time. And how about doing both the jobs, and let me see whether I really have it in me to be able to not only strategize, but also execute that strategy. Because at one time, somebody else's strategy I was executing, and the other time I was only doing strategy, somebody else was executing. And so I moved to Godrej,
Hmm.
where I did both. And that was also a great experience, because it was about really rejuvenating a brand that was many, many tens of years old, and loved by many consumers, and a different format, a different consumer landscape altogether. I mean, L'Oreal, we were selling 400 rupee products, and 500, this was a 7 rupee product that I was selling. So it was another challenge of its
Right.
kind. And after having done 20 years of personal care, the why not? I asked myself, I'm becoming too comfortable. And is the possibility that I can shift gears and do another category? Do I have it in me to be able to do that? And then I joined telecom, which was more FMCG than FMCG is. And I launched 3G, 4G. Then we had the Geo onslaught onto us. Had a great journey with learning about how mergers happen of 2 large companies.
Hmm.
Uh, Launched a unified brand where there were 2 very distinct identities between Vodafone and Idea, and then finally launch V for the consumers, and being completely neutral about whether it was more Vodafone based or influenced or what Idea was. So, and then I said, okay, I've done enough of that, and what do I do next? And that's when in 2020 I moved to this role, where now I look after marketing, brands, insights for the entire group. So we work with many businesses. And if you ask me, from I start the day with fashion, I probably go into doing some amount of jewelry, then I go into probably doing pulp and paper, and then I do aluminium. So it's a bizarre day for anyone outside. But at the same time, I think here the big learning experience is really to get the whole B2B experience,
Mm.
learning about sales management, key account management, customer journey mapping. How do B2B people look at marketing? And the question I often had was, this is not advertising, this is marketing. This is
Mm.
not beauty, this is telecom. This is not telecom, this is B2B.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's kept me going to say, I can do this and I can do that. So while I have done marketing for 30 years, I don't think I've done the same job twice ever. And
Very well
every
said.
job has helped me really shape me as a marketer, understand business implications, the marketing strategies and impact on business.
Mm.
Uh, and in some cases, it's about, in the current role, it's really trying to tell people that you need to do marketing
Correct.
even if you're in B2B, because there's nothing called B2B, B2C. I think it's now more B2H. It's
Yes.
business to humans.
Mm.
They could be in an organization, they could be an end consumer, but you
Mm.
still have to look at a humanized way of doing marketing.
Very
And
well
and
said.
I did a course very early this year,
Mm.
which really spoke about not looking at only customers or only capital markets, but looking at communities, looking at employees, because all of them
Mm.
actually help build the brand and build the business. So
Amazing.
that's really
Amazing.
been my journey.
That's fantastic. What an amazing journey. And, I've met a lot of people, but you're one of the few people who has consistently reinvented herself over and over again, partly because of your own desire and partly because probably you enjoy the challenge. Thank you. So, Sunita, now let's talk a little bit about consumer insights and brand development. How do you integrate consumer insights into shaping a brand's long-term strategy?
I've always maintained, when I have been with very many business people, as well as sometimes I also do guest lectures at institutes, that brands are nothing different from what we do to ourselves as human beings.
Correct.
And if you really want to create an emotional connect,
Mm.
you have to relate to that person with whom you want to create that connect. So it could be
Right.
you with your friends, you with your family, or brands with their consumers.
Mm.
And unless you really know what is that pain point that the consumer is going through, not that it's a need that you are fulfilling, but what is that vulnerability? What is that deepest problem that the person is facing, which you can, help with your brand? I don't think you can have an emotional connect very strong. Then it becomes a transactional requirement that they need to wash their hair. You're giving them a shampoo. Okay, 2 rupees, you buy the sachet and you forget about why you bought it.
Mm.
But if you really want to fall in love with customers, just like we fall in love with people, you really need to know what is that person made up of,
Mm.
what drives that person, what is the a desire that that person wants to kind of do but is not being able to do. And when you
Right.
kind of strike that chord with that person, and
Mm.
that's what I call inciting,
Mm.
it's really to go, not an observation of behavior, not what people do or why they do, but even deeper of what really pushes them to do what they do. And
So,
I think if you build brands on that deep insight, then it's not a relationship for a one-time purchase or a multiple purchase. It's a relationship for life. I
that's
believe,
mm.
unless you do it on deep insights,
Correct.
very rarely you will be very successful in the long run. You could of course have a couple of quarters or a couple of years of success because
Yeah.
you may be new, you may be the first on the block, but if you don't have that emotional connect, I don't see it going too far too
Mm.
soon.
Well said. And a follow-up question for you, Sunita, is what role does storytelling and emotional insights play in creating a strong connection between consumers and brands?
So that's where the whole B2H really comes in. As humans, I think, and I would imagine anywhere in the world, because insights are pretty transferable. I mean, when I did the global relaunch of Sunsilk, we
Mm.
had the same insight for 5 different countries.
Mm.
It was just executed and manifested differently, depending on the culture of that country. But the human insights are pretty simple. We all love stories. I mean, when we were growing up, we weren't taught values on some chart and said this
Yeah.
is value. We were taught values through stories. We still remember those stories, and
Mm.
that's why we remember those values. In India, Bollywood is religion, and it is hugely successful because of the storytelling. I think brands have to understand that people don't wake up in the morning to say, I want to go and buy you.
Mm.
They have their life to run. And, we sometimes with advertising create hindrances in those lives, whether they're
Mm.
watching a piece of content or, they're having a conversation with their friends or whatever, maybe, surfing something on the net and, there's an ad that pops up.
Yeah.
But if the ad is really something that is about their life,
Mm.
which is going back to an insight. And it's done in a very interesting way, which is
Mm.
not about me trying to sell you. Of course,
Mm.
we are trying to sell you, but in a manner that makes the person feel engaged, is leaned into your communication. That I think is very powerful. I'll give you an example. And I worked in many organizations. L'Oreal did not believe too much into storytelling. They were all about the product show. But if I was taking one of my other brands, Idea, we only believed in storytelling.
Yeah.
And some of the brand advertising of Idea has been iconic over the years. I
Right.
still remember the very first ad with Abhishek Bachchan, which was about eradicating the caste system in India.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it was a mini Sholay in advertising, if I was to say so. And even though it was a minute and a half long, I don't think anyone would have skipped the button and moved to the next thing. And I think that's the power of storytelling. And we've grown up that way. So very, very strongly believe that if it is relatable, if it is based on a good insight, it's done in a conversational manner with a story in the background. There's nothing that's going to get the guy to
Absolutely.
skip you on that ad. So
Yeah.
that's
And
why I
you've given such an amazing example as you were talking. I was thinking that one line, what an idea, Sergi, has
yeah.
become, a generic phrase.
Yes, it was lexicon. In fact, all of the sort of what I should say catchphrases of idea have
Correct.
become iconic because it's no idea and get idea. So sometimes I say I don't have an idea. They were like, "You were an idea. You should get an idea." And it's just used as common language. What an idea,
This
Sergi,
is
of
brilliant.
course. I
Absolutely.
remember we launched that ad, Honey Bunny, and I remember I think after a week or 10 days of that advertising, which had become very, very viral at that point in time. There was on the front page of Economic Times where there was "Show me your honey money,"
Hmm.
uh, "Show me the money, honey," or something like that. And it
Hmm.
was it was really amazing to say people are really catching on to those lines, and then
Correct.
they become shorthand for our advertising, and
Yeah.
people would remember the advertising. In fact, I remember. Abhishek once had said, most of my blockbusters are idea advertising, the commercials that we
Yeah.
create. So
Yeah.
I very, very strongly believe that
Amazing. Yeah,
if you have
absolutely
an
right.
amazing story, and at no point in time we didn't sell the product. People knew exactly what we were
Correct.
selling, but it was just like it's happened to me. It's my life. I see it on the big screen. I enjoy it, and it stays with me.
Mhm. Well said. And now I'm now talking of much older marketer from my perspective. But when you are looking at consumer insights and brand development, how is technology changing the way you work and the way your teams work?
I'm just going to answer one more thing that you'd asked me, that
Yeah,
how has
sure.
it changed over the decades
Yeah.
in terms of advertising? I
Yeah.
think what's happening is fundamentals don't change
Hmm.
because humans, are humans and they will continue to be that way.
Correct.
What changes is how we react to what's happening around us. And therefore, from a marketing perspective, I think we always have to be two steps ahead of the consumer.
Hmm.
So that when the consumer reaches there, we've already, got our stuff ready for him.
Hmm.
And therefore, coming to your current question in terms of how does technology shape it, I feel technology is a huge, huge boon in the way we do stuff. I'll
Correct.
give you an example. It doesn't take away from doing the real inciting, but what it helps you gather is a lot more information in real time. So, for
Hmm.
example, we do nowadays, one way to do research is go meet the person, get everything from him, then come back, then collate the whole thing. Anytime, any research is about 8 weeks to 10 weeks, duration.
Hmm.
But the world is moving so fast that by the time you get that data and you act upon it, probably there's a new thing that's going on and you've missed
Right.
the bus completely.
Mm.
So what do? We do a lot of social listening, because people are talking very candidly in social media. Because when you go and ask questions, people have also become wiser and give you politically correct answers.
Mm.
They're more claimed. Whereas when they are on social media and they don't know that they're getting tracked, they're being very honest. Now
Mm.
that's real time research. I can
Right.
go and actually say what's happening on this in this country with this person with this mindset, and I'll get a whole list of things that are really going on, which
Yeah.
people are talking about. The second way is when I'm doing research, with the aid of technology now with Copilot, for example, after every group, I really know what were the 3 points that were the big topics that came out of a discussion. I can almost go back and synthesize in 1 week what's going on, and I still have to do the human work of drawing the insights from that. But with technology, I can go much faster into what I want to do.
Mm.
And so I really believe that it's not a fight of humans versus technology, it's humans and technology. Where technology is an enabler for doing repetitive stuff for you,
Mm.
but and doing it at a pace that is much faster and probably equally accurate. I would say
Right.
some of the data is almost 85-90% accurate.
Mm.
But then you sit on that data and you try and understand, therefore, what do I do with it? And that I think machine can't do. Or
Mm.
even if it can do, it doesn't have that human touch.
Mm.
That's what I think people and marketers should kind of spend time on. And I believe that the two together is magic, is really magic.
Very well said. Very well said. Sunita, now I'm going to move to the last segment of our conversation, and I want to ask you a few questions on your philosophy of why not versus why.
Yeah,
How
sure.
has your why not philosophy influenced your approach to marketing and brand development? And you've got so many stories. Give me another example of how you used your why not philosophy.
It's the why not has got me where I am, because every time I said I don't want to do this, and I said why not, and I tried it, and I
Mm.
tried it, and as a result, like I said, I learned a lot in
Yeah.
the entire journey. So pushing myself, and therefore sometimes I do push my teams as well to do the same thing, which may not be the greatest thing for them, but I believe that if you get too comfortable, you never grow. And someone long back had said you have to be uncomfortable to
Right.
grow. And whether it is your business or whether it is your brands, I think pushing the envelope, asking questions, trying new things, you'll never, doing more of the same is not going to get you where you intend to get you. So you have to do it differently. You have to do it in a manner that kind of provokes you to do
Right.
something that you haven't tried before. And therefore,
Mm.
the why not has helped me always.
Mm.
Uh, I also believe that as a individual, the curiosity of wanting to know more helps you grow as a person as well. So whether it's trying to understand consumers, trying to understand people, uh, in my current role, I work with 20 companies. Each person comes with a different mindset, with his or her own experience. And how do I convince the person to get the point across? And I kid you not, I've actually done brand strategy on an Excel sheet, because there are managing directors who only believe in numbers.
Mm.
And then for another person, it's all about just having a conversation. And for a third, it's all about putting charts on a PPT, because that's what works
Yeah.
for the person. So
Mm.
really understanding, and therefore being able to say, let me try something different. Why does it not work with him? Let me do it this way. Because the end point is really to get everybody on the same page. So I
Right.
really believe the why not for me is the thrust that gets me up in the morning and say, what do I try differently today? And why have I done the same thing of what I did yesterday, tomorrow? So
Fabulous.
that's really what it is. As far as business is concerned and examples, oh, many of them.
Mm.
Uh, I'll give you an example. When I was in Godrej, and we were relaunching the Godrej hair cream at that point in time. It was a new product that we were bringing in. And we had done, everything that really is to be done by the book. And we had closed in on a positioning and all of that stuff. And there was something that was niggling us, saying, how is this really different from what everyone else is talking? It's just a different take, but
Yeah.
you're landing it in the same zone. And you won't believe it. We went back to the drawing board, went back to meet consumers. We asked them a very different set of questions. In fact, just two questions to everyone. And we said, what do you do differently the day you color your hair? So we
Mm.
didn't ask them about, why do you color your hair? What do you buy? The typical stuff that you normally tell. We said, just
Mm.
tell us, what do you do differently when you color your hair?
Mm.
And the second thing is, how does it make you feel that day? That's it.
Yeah.
Those two questions. You won't believe it. What we came back with was, again, magic for me. We never
Mhm.
launched it. I
Yeah.
moved out of Godrej
Mhm.
by the time that happened. But it was really funny because people said, so we went to a tailor and he said, uh, every day I do about 6, 7 pants. The day I color my hair, I do about 12.
Wow.
We went to another, I think he was a carpenter, I'm not so sure, but anyway, we went to, he
Mm.
said, that day I want to wear red. I feel
Mm.
like wearing a red shirt or a red t-shirt or whatever. Other
Mm.
days I don't like this, it's too hot, it's very loud, I don't wear that. We went to a lady and she says, the day I color my hair, when I go for a walk with my husband, I hold his hand. And these were things that made us think, so what is really triggering that? And we came back with saying that it's not about looking young, it's about feeling young.
Great.
Because when you're young, you are, you have more optimistic, you're willing to take on charges. As kids, they never stop at anything, they keep doing we get a little more pessimistic as we grow up. So we came up with this whole thing of java bal java soch,
Mm.
which was younger hair gives you younger thinking.
Correct.
Because also the product was a conditioning hair dry. So, Java Bal is when it's a full
Yeah.
head of hair and it's bouncy. So we got the product thing in, but it was all about a mindset that we were going after and not a physical attribute of looking beautiful, staying young, all of that stuff, which everybody else was doing.
Mm.
And we came back and I just thought it was an amazing space for us to have taken, our brand in that zone.
Correct.
And that's why after that, I think one thing changed in the way I look at segmentation. So I don't do the typical demographic, psychographic, geographic, because I
Mm.
mean, somebody staying in slums in Bombay, is he rural, is he urban? And, lots of questions in
Yeah.
my mind. So we said, we're going to now dimensionalize people on behavior and mindset. Because if the mindset is ripe, then whenever they have the means, the behavior will happen. But if there's no mindset, then the behavior is never going to take place. So
Right.
a lot of these why nots happened, and therefore we said, let's look at it differently, let's cut it differently, let's look at, how can you slice your customers not on demographics and geographies, because I'm in Bombay but I'm working in South, so am I a South Indian customer or am I a North Indian customer? So a
Mm.
lot of that really got me to the why not really helps in kind of pushing the envelope.
Amazing. So you have got time for one more question, and I want to ask you this: uh, when you look at your why not philosophy, can you tell me a little bit about a time when your why not made you go against conventional wisdom, and how did it pay off?
So let me talk of an example at L'Oreal when we just launched. At that time, there were just three shades that were there. It was black, it was brown, and it was brown black. And the reason why people colored their hair was only to look younger because it was covering grays.
Yeah.
And typically, people would spend anywhere between 15 to $20 because Godrej was the brand leader at that point in time. And that was what they were doing. And when we came up with L'Oreal, and internationally, L'Oreal had a lot of understanding of hair color, but they didn't have the understanding of the Indian market. And against all wisdom, all research, and all what you say commonsensical stuff, a new company, which is just a year old in the organization in India, sorry,
Mhm.
launches 11 shades at 230 rupees versus a 10 rupee
Mhm.
product.
Mhm.
Uh, I think everyone thought we were completely nuts and crazy. And, you won't believe it, even we were a little nervous about the whole thing because when I would go out and meet people and say, we're trying a few colors, can you come and, get your hair colored? And it's for free, and it's obviously great company, no, nothing is going. And people would come very shiftily and say, don't, it should not show too much because my mother will have a problem, my husband will have a problem, and so on and so forth. And we used to struggle to try our colors onto people because we also had to see what suits Indian skin tones and Indian
Yeah.
hair.
Yeah.
And when I left 7 years later, it was very difficult to find virgin hair to begin with.
Mm.
Everyone had colored their hair. And
Yeah.
every time we colored their hair, they would say, that's it. I thought it would show more because, this is too light. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not showing on my hair. So
Mm.
all I'm trying to say is that every time it's not about oh, what will people say, because they've never experienced something. Sometimes people have to experience it for the first time to
Right.
believe that's possible.
Right.
And in L'Oreal, we have defied all of those hypotheses. We were in a country where fairness was 50% and moisturizer was another 20-30%. We launched the first anti-aging cream. We launched the brand with an anti-aging cream. And today it's a very, very important category. So I'm just saying that we get totally trapped of always saying, what is competition doing? What do consumers know? Will they buy? Versus what you think you should be evolving the consumers to. And I think that's an example that really, for me, has kind of worked in the manner it has worked. And I think for my personal experience, everyone has always told me, you sure you want to do this after doing this so successfully? And I've always kind of said, yeah, let me just try it out. I mean, and at times I have been nervous when I've taken those shifts and those calls. But I think it's really worked out very well for me. And I would just tell everyone who's listening to it is never be shy of trying new things. Yes, you may fail at times, and it's okay. We did fail on a couple of things as well. But if you really want to be seen as a marketer, seen as being aspirational, seen as being the torchbearer and leading consumers to some place, you have to go against the norms. You have to sometimes just take a reverse stride and go backwards or forwards, whichever the case may be.
Amazing.
Because I don't think you can see success if you just keep going the beaten path.
Amazing. Sunita, on that note, I just want to say what an amazing conversation this has been. Thank you so much for talking to me about your own incredible journey. Parts of our conversation were almost like a 101 on marketing, and all our viewers and listeners will understand how deeply, not only do you understand it, but how passionate you are about brands, consumer insights, and brand development. Thank you for speaking to me about so many of your own experiences. And I said somewhere in between our conversation that you're one of the few people I have known or have got to know today who has never hesitate to reinvent herself in not just a simple way, but across multiple industries. Thank you for talking to me about consumer insights and brand development. Thank you for talking to me about your why not philosophy. As I was listening to you, I was always almost amazed to see what an amazing what a quintessential storyteller you are yourself. Just re-emphasizes your passion for marketing. And I'm reasonably certain that in one of these days, maybe when you have a little more time, I will see a little book coming out from Sunita Bangard talking about all the amazing brands that you have worked with.
Now, I've been very fortunate to work on iconic brands, and I've learned a lot from all of them. So I owe it to them, and I keep thinking about it myself. That maybe I should start, pen down some of my, journeys and memories that I've had with these brands, because I'm sure it could be helpful for people out there, and also interesting to know what's going on.
Absolutely.
So, but thank you so much. It's been a great conversation for me as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.